Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be looking at some pretty interesting concepts from Dr. K
Right.
from part two of a talk called What Are We Waiting For?
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of you out there are interested in this whole idea of completion,
Yeah.
oneness, and how we really come to understand spiritual truth. So
Yeah.
I think you're going to find this one really interesting.
I think so too.
So Dr. K, right out of the gate, she kind of dives into some really juicy questions, like,
Yeah.
is true spiritual fulfillment something that we're constantly like striving for?
Hmm.
Or is it something that's already present?
Right. Yeah.
What's the difference between just knowing a spiritual truth
Uh-huh.
and then actually like embodying it and experiencing it?
Yeah.
And then she gets into this whole idea of like the first fruit company,
Yeah.
which I'm really curious to get your take on, because
Me too.
I'm not sure if I totally understand what she means by that. Like, is this like, a special group of people, or is this something that we can all kind of like,
Yeah, are we all
tap into?
part of that?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So much to unpack there.
Well, it's interesting how she starts off talking about waiting
Okay.
and actually distinguishes between two different kinds of waiting.
Okay.
She brings up Romans 8.19 and 23,
Okay.
which talk about creation eagerly waiting for God's children to be revealed
Uh-huh.
and believers waiting for the redemption of their bodies.
Right.
And she makes this distinction between like passively waiting for something external to change
Yeah.
versus a more active form of waiting where we're drawing from.
Okay.
This wellspring of understanding within and sharing it with others.
So she's saying it's not just like sitting around twiddling our thumbs,
Right.
hoping for something to magically happen.
It's about engaging with the truth we already have
Right.
and using it to serve others.
Yes, and I love how she uses that analogy of the waiter to illustrate this point.
So vivid.
So vivid.
You know, those who know are like waiters,
Okay.
constantly drawing from this source of spiritual understanding
Yeah.
and serving it up
Yeah.
to those who are still hungry for deeper meaning.
I love that.
It makes me want to be a good waiter.
Right.
You know, like how can I be more like that in my own life?
Yeah, how can I be more actively cultivating those insights and sharing them with
Right.
the people around me?
That's a great question to reflect on.
Yeah.
And it kind of leads us into one of her core assertions,
Okay.
which is that everything was spiritually completed before time even began.
Whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Hold on, she's saying that everything is already done?
Yes.
Like, what does that even mean?
It's a pretty radical idea, right?
Yeah.
She's talking about this concept of kairos time,
Okay.
which is an eternal, immeasurable kind of time
Okay.
that exists outside of our normal linear understanding of time.
So, like,
You can think of chronos time as our calendar time,
okay.
minutes and hours ticking by.
Uh-huh.
But kairos time is something altogether different.
Okay.
It's the eternal now.
Okay.
And in that eternal now, everything is already complete.
I think I'm starting to get it.
Okay.
So it's like there's this whole other dimension of time where everything is already like perfect and whole.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we access that?
Yeah, well, she uses this example of Jesus' baptism, where the heavens open up
Okay.
to illustrate that this realm of kairos time is always available to us.
Okay.
It's not something we have to wait for. It's something we can access right now.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
But if everything is already complete,
Right.
what does that mean for our lives here in this world in Chronos time?
Right.
Like, why bother striving for anything
Now, why bother, right?
if it's all already done?
Well, and she addresses that head on.
Okay.
She challenges those end times theologies that focus on interpreting external events and predicting the future.
Yeah, yeah.
She's saying the real transformation happens within us.
Yeah.
Not out there somewhere in the future.
So less doom and gloom.
Right.
More inner work.
Exactly.
I like it.
And this brings us to the idea of dispensation,
Okay.
which she reframes in a really interesting way.
Okay. How so?
Instead of viewing it as some future prophecy unfolding,
Uh-huh.
she defines it as stewardship.
Stewardship.
Yeah.
What does she mean by that?
She sees it as our responsibility to house spiritual truth within us
Okay.
and then share it generously with others.
Oh, okay.
It's about becoming caretakers of this wisdom and using it to serve the world.
So it's not about hoarding knowledge
Yeah.
or trying to become like,
Some spiritual elite.
yeah, some spiritual elite. Exactly.
Right. And she talks about this first fruit company, individuals who have a deeper understanding of these concepts
Mm-hmm.
and are called to serve them to those who are still seeking.
Okay.
But she emphasizes that it's not about being perfect
Right.
or having all the answers.
Yeah.
It's about being willing to share what we've learned
Yeah.
and help others along the path.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's less about achieving some kind of spiritual perfection
Right.
and more about becoming better stewards of the insights that we receive,
Exactly.
regardless of where we are on the journey.
Exactly. And she throws in this really intriguing statement
Okay.
about how the only way to fully experience this spiritual completion
Okay.
is when the head is in its rightful place.
Okay. That sounds kind of cryptic.
Yeah.
What in the world does that mean?
She's talking about the integration of masculine and feminine energies,
Okay.
the importance of heart coherence.
Uh.
It's about finding that right relationship between our intellect, our head,
Yeah.
and our intuition, our heart.
Okay.
That sweet spot where head and heart work together in harmony.
I can see how that would be really important.
Yes.
Like we need both the intellectual understanding
Yes.
and that deep intuitive knowing
Yeah.
to really embody these truths.
Precisely. And she uses this beautiful analogy of planting a seed
Okay.
in the womb of consciousness, allowing something to be formed and then projected outward.
So it's not just about having a mental grasp on these concepts.
Right.
It's about letting them take root in our hearts.
Yes.
And then sharing them from that place of deep inner knowing.
Powerful image, right?
Yeah. It's like she's saying that real transformation happens not just in our minds, but
Right.
in our whole being.
Exactly.
Right.
So that makes me wonder,
Yeah.
what does it mean for each of us to have that right relationship
Mm-hmm.
between our head and heart in our own spiritual journeys?
Yes.
How can we cultivate that kind of heart coherence?
That is the question.
And speaking of those who get it and those who don't,
Yeah.
she dives into Matthew 13.11,
Okay.
which talks about the mysteries of the kingdom
Uh-huh.
being given to some but not to others.
Right, right.
And she emphasizes that this isn't about some people being inherently more worthy or chosen.
Yeah.
It's about the willingness to activate our spiritual senses,
Okay.
which she calls the single eye, single ear, and circumcised heart.
So it's not that some people are just born with like a special spiritual gene.
Right,
It's
yeah.
about actively cultivating
Yes.
our ability to perceive and understand
Our capacity.
these deeper truths.
Yeah, she's saying we all have the potential
Okay.
to awaken to these mysteries,
Okay.
but it takes effort.
Okay.
It takes a willingness to refine our inner senses
Yeah.
and become more receptive
Yeah.
to the subtle whispers of spirit.
Which makes me wonder what practices or disciplines can help us to do that.
Yeah, what can help us cultivate
Yeah.
those spiritual senses and become more attuned
Right.
to that deeper level of knowing?
That's a really good question.
It is.
And it leads us into one of the most visually rich
Yes.
parts of Dr. K's talk,
Yes.
where she delves into the symbolism of Revelation 10.1 to 7,
Oh, yes.
specifically focusing on the mighty angel.
Right.
Okay, so when she says mighty angel,
Yeah.
she's not talking about like
A literal angel with wings.
a literal angel with wings and a halo.
No,
Well,
not quite. She interprets the mighty angel
Okay.
as representing a powerful message,
Okay.
emerging from those who carry the goods,
Okay.
those who have embodied these spiritual truths
Okay.
and are now sharing them with the world.
Oh, so it's like a symbol for the power of the message itself.
Yes,
The truth that's being revealed through those who've awakened to it.
precisely.
Okay, I like that.
And she goes on to deconstruct the rest of the symbolism in that passage.
Okay.
You know, she says the cloud represents the mystery
Okay.
and vastness of the spiritual realm.
Uh-huh.
The rainbow symbolizes the promise of hope and new beginnings.
Okay.
The sun represents the illuminating power of truth.
Got it.
And the fire represents the purifying and transformative energy of the spirit.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there.
It is a lot.
So basically she's saying this mighty angel message is one of profound hope, truth, and transformation.
Yes.
But what exactly is the message?
Well, she argues that it's a message that empowers individuals to rule over their own imaginations and appearances,
Oh, wow.
rather than being ruled by them.
So it's not just about passively receiving spiritual knowledge,
Right.
but it's about using it to take control of our own minds and perceptions.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing our inherent power to shape our own reality.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's about becoming more discerning about the messages we allow to influence us,
Right.
both internally and externally.
And that brings us to the seven thunders
Yes.
mentioned in Revelation 10.
Dun, dun, dun.
I've always wondered about those.
Yeah, those are mysterious.
What are those all about?
Well, her interpretation is pretty mind-blowing.
Okay, lay on me.
She sees those thunders as the voice of those speaking with prophetic authority.
Oh, okay.
declaring a message of completion and oneness.
So they represent the voices of those who have, like, fully grasped this truth.
Yeah.
And are now, like, proclaiming it to the world.
Exactly. But here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
The passage instructs John to seal up these thunders, to not write down what he heard. And she interprets this as a call for discernment.
Okay.
It's about knowing when and how to share these insights.
So it's not about shouting this truth from the rooftops
Right.
or trying to force it on anyone.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that not everyone is ready to hear this message.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes silence is more potent than words.
Right.
It's about sharing our wisdom with compassion and understanding.
Yeah.
Recognizing that spiritual growth is a process
Yeah.
that unfolds in its own time.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But if we're not supposed to wait for some big dramatic event to happen, then what about the whole idea of the end of time?
Right. That's where she makes this really powerful connection between Revelation 10.7 and 1 Thessalonians 4.16.
Okay.
Remember how 1 Thessalonians talks about the Lord descending from heaven with a shout, the voice of the archangel, the trumpet call of God?
Right.
She ties that imagery to the mystery of God being finished in Revelation. She's saying the end of time isn't some future event we're waiting for.
Okay.
It's an ongoing inner transformation, a spiritual resurrection that happens within us.
Oh, wow.
Not something we wait for in the distant future.
So she's saying the real apocalypse isn't about the world ending,
Right.
but about our old limited ways of thinking and being ending.
Yes. It's an ongoing process of death and rebirth.
Yes.
Of shedding old identities and stepping into the fullness of who we truly are.
That's powerful.
It is. And if that's the case,
Yeah.
it raises an important question for each of us.
What's that?
If the end of time is not some future event, but an ongoing inner transformation, how does that change our perspective on spiritual urgency
Yeah.
and living in the present moment?
That is a lot to think about.
She gives us a lot to chew on.
She does.
Just in this first part of her talk.
I know.
It's amazing.
So before we move on to the next section, I'd love to hear what's standing out to you so far in all of this.
Yeah.
What's resonating most deeply with your own spiritual journey?
Yeah, it's fascinating how she connects this idea of an internal end of time to the concept of judging righteously.
Oh, yeah, I remember that part.
Yeah.
She was talking about John 12,
Right.
where some people heard a voice from heaven when Jesus was speaking and others just heard thunder.
Yeah.
But she wasn't talking about, like, condemning people, was she?
Not at all. She was actually emphasizing the importance of discerning perception.
Okay.
She pointed out that those who only heard thunder weren't ready or willing to perceive the deeper spiritual message.
So it's about judging our own perceptions.
Exactly.
Recognizing when we might be stuck in limited thinking.
Yeah, she's advocating for a kind of radical compassion.
Okay.
Where we recognize that illusory nature of appearances and choose to see the divine spark within everyone.
Even those who are behaving badly.
Even those who are behaving in ways that we might not approve of.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a powerful practice.
It is.
It makes me think of that saying, don't judge a man until you've walked a mile in his shoes.
It's a similar idea. She's urging us to look beyond those surface judgments.
Yeah.
And see the inherent goodness in all beings.
It's like she's saying, don't get caught up in the drama of the ego.
Right.
Choose to see through the illusion and focus on the love and light that's always present.
Yes.
But she also seems to have some strong opinions about organized religion, doesn't she?
She does touch on that, yes.
Okay.
She challenges traditional interpretations of concepts like sin and salvation and even the nature of God.
Okay.
She points out that many religious beliefs are rooted in fear and limitation, preventing us from experiencing the fullness of our spiritual potential.
So it's not about throwing out religion altogether.
No.
But maybe questioning what we've been taught.
Right.
And seeking a more direct experience of the divine.
Exactly. She encourages us to move beyond dogma and limiting beliefs to discover our own truth.
It takes courage to speak your truth like that.
It does.
Especially when it goes against the grain.
Especially when you're going to get flack for it.
Yeah.
Which she has.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's received quite a bit of criticism for challenging the status quo.
Well, good for her.
Yeah.
Standing in her truth.
Yeah, it's inspiring to see.
It is.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, though, if these truths have always been available, why are so many people still clinging to those old paradigms?
Yeah, that's where her insights about those seals being broken come into play.
Okay.
It takes conscious effort to deconstruct those ingrained beliefs
Right.
that keep us trapped in fear and limitation.
So true.
Remember, she connected this idea of the seals with those 7 thunders,
Oh, yeah.
representing this powerful message of completion and oneness,
Right.
but also emphasizing the importance of discerning when and how to share those insights.
It's almost like she's saying, hold this wisdom carefully, share it wisely, and trust that the right people will hear it when the time is right.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that ties back to her interpretation of the end of time, not as some catastrophic event, but as a continual process of inner awakening. It's that shift from a linear chronological perspective to an eternal kairos understanding of time.
So it's not about waiting for the world to end, but about the ending of our old, limited ways of thinking and being.
Exactly. It's an ongoing process of death and rebirth.
Yeah.
Of shedding old identities and stepping into the fullness of who we truly are.
That's where her powerful connection between Revelation 10.7 and 1 Thessalonians 4.16 comes in again.
Oh, yeah.
Remember how 1 Thessalonians describes the Lord descending from heaven with a shout and the trumpet call of God?
Yes.
She connects that imagery to the mystery of God being finished in Revelation.
Right.
She's saying that this end of time is not a future event, but a continual process of inner transformation.
Yeah.
A spiritual resurrection that happens within us.
Yes.
Not something we wait for in the distant future.
Powerful stuff.
So it's not about escaping this world, but about transforming it.
Yes.
Starting with ourselves.
Precisely. It's about bringing heaven down to earth.
Yeah.
So to speak.
I like that.
By embodying the truth of our oneness and our inherent divinity.
Okay, but how do we actually do that?
Right.
How do we embody this truth in our daily life?
That's where her interpretation of the little book in Revelation 10 comes in.
Okay.
She sees it as representing the one true message of Christ, which is not about predicting the future or focusing on external events, but about revealing the inherent oneness and completeness that already exists within us.
It sounds like she's saying that the real gospel isn't about waiting for someone to save us, but about recognizing our own inherent capacity for salvation.
Exactly.
That true liberation comes from within.
Yes, it's about waking up to the truth of who we are and living from that place of wholeness and power.
I like that.
And that's where her emphasis on stewardship comes back into play.
Okay.
It's about not just receiving this truth, but becoming responsible for it, for sharing it with others in a way that empowers them to awaken to their own inherent divinity.
So it's not about preaching from a soapbox, but about sharing our wisdom with humility and compassion.
Yes.
Recognizing that everyone is on their own unique journey.
Precisely. It's about creating safe spaces for people to explore their own spiritual journeys and discover their own truths.
This all makes me wonder if this profound transformation is available now. Why do so many people still seem stuck in that old paradigm?
That's where her insights about discernment become so important.
Okay.
Remember how in John 12, some people heard the voice from heaven when Jesus was speaking?
Right.
But others just heard thunder.
Yeah.
She wasn't saying that those who only heard thunder were bad or unworthy.
Right.
It's about recognizing that not everyone is ready to hear a particular message at a particular time.
It makes me think about that instruction to seal up the 7 thunders.
Yes.
It's almost like saying, hold this wisdom carefully, share it wisely, and trust that the right people will hear it when the time is right.
Exactly. And that ties back into her interpretation of the end of time, not as some catastrophic event, but as a continual process of inner awakening. It's a process that unfolds in its own time, in its own way, for each individual.
So it's less about trying to force anyone to see things our way, and more about trusting the process of awakening.
Precisely. And she acknowledges that it's not always a smooth or linear path. There can be times of doubt, confusion, even setbacks.
Of course.
But she encourages us to embrace the whole journey with all its twists and turns, trusting that we're always being guided and supported even when we feel lost or alone.
It's like she's saying, don't be afraid of the messy parts. That's where the real growth happens.
Exactly.
But how do we stay connected to that sense of being guided and supported when things get tough? Especially if we're questioning some of the beliefs that used to provide us with comfort and a sense of certainty.
That's a great question, and it leads us into one of the most powerful parts of her talk.
Okay.
Where she addresses the question of spiritual authority.
Yeah, so if we're not supposed to look to those external authorities for all the answers, then where do we find that guidance and support?
Yeah, where do we turn?
On our spiritual journeys.
Well, this is where she really challenges us to step into our own power.
Okay.
She reminds us that true spiritual authority doesn't come from blindly following dogma or giving our power away to religious institutions or gurus. It comes from recognizing the divine spark within ourselves.
It's about reclaiming our own inner authority.
Exactly.
Not letting fear or those limiting beliefs
Right.
dictate our understanding of the truth.
It's about trusting that inner knowing.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's a really empowering message.
it is.
But it also sounds like a lot of responsibility.
It is.
It's like she's saying, okay, you're not a victim of circumstance. You have the power to create your own reality. Now go out there and do it.
Right, and she emphasizes that we all have direct access to this source of wisdom and guidance.
Okay.
It's not something that's reserved for a select few.
Yeah.
It's available to everyone who's willing to cultivate their spiritual senses.
Yeah.
And listen to that still small voice within.
It is a big responsibility.
It is.
But it's also incredibly liberating.
It is, and she reminds us that we're not alone in this.
Okay.
We have each other, and we have the support of the divine.
Right. It's like we're all in this together, figuring it out as we go.
We are.
And maybe that's the beauty of it, you know?
Yeah.
It's not about having all the answers.
Right.
But it's about embracing the mystery and the adventure.
The journey.
Yeah, the journey of it all.
Exactly. And she emphasizes that this journey is not about seeking something outside of ourselves,
Right.
but about uncovering the treasure that's already within us.
It's about remembering who we truly are.
Yes.
Divine beings with the power to create a world of love, peace, and abundance.
And it's about sharing this truth with others so that we can all awaken to our full potential and create a world where everyone can thrive.
Yeah. So to bring it all back to our original question,
Yes?
what are we waiting for?
Right, what are we waiting for?
It seems like Dr. K's urging us to stop waiting for something outside of ourselves to change
Yes.
and start embracing the fullness that's already present within us.
Exactly. She challenges us to step into our power, cultivate our spiritual senses,
Yeah.
and become conscious stewards of the truth we receive.
Yeah.
To recognize that the power to transform our lives and the world around us lies not in external events, but within ourselves.
That's a really powerful message to end on.
It is, isn't it?
It is.
And it brings us back to that final provocative question she poses in her talk.
Okay.
What are we waiting for?
Wow.
I invite you, dear listener, to reflect on this question in your own life.
Mm.
Are you still waiting for something external to change? Or are you ready to embrace the fullness that's already present within you?
Yeah.
The mysteries of the kingdom are available to those who choose to see with new eyes, hear with new ears, and open their hearts to a deeper understanding.
Wow. That's deep. Thank you so much for guiding us through this deep dive into Dr. K's talk.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
It's definitely given me a lot to think about.
I'm so glad.
And to you listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's sparked something within you and inspired you to continue exploring your own spiritual path.
Yes. Keep seeking.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning,
Keep questioning.
and keep awakening to the truth of who you truly are.
Yes.